People are stopped from fleeing a deadly earthquake. China's economy tumbles, although they have a creative solution. And the crackdown in Hong Kong is getting so bad it's almost hilarious. But it's not. That and more on this week's China News Headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Surfshark. Whenever you go online, especially to look into controversial topics, you should be using a VPN like Surfshark to protect your identity. It's been a rough summer for people in China. They've been hit with deadly floods, a record heat wave and drought, and the worst power outages in decades. And if that wasn't enough, this week a 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck Sichuan province. Dozens of people were killed and hundreds more injured. The epicenter of the quake was Gansu Prefecture. It's home to mostly ethnic Tibetans, which is to say people whom the Chinese regime generally keeps poor and marginalized, and occasionally throws into prison on trumped-up charges like inciting splitism. But that's not the point. The point is, it gets worse. Because in addition to the earthquake, the people of Sichuan province are also dealing with the Communist Party's zero-COVID lockdowns. And the zero-COVID rules prevented citizens from evacuating during the earthquake. In one city, as residents fled down the stairs of their high-rise apartment buildings, many found the exits locked or blocked by community health workers who urged them to remain indoors. And this video on Douyin, China's version of TikTok, shows residents in another apartment complex who came down to the lobby after the quake only to discover the doors had been chained from the outside. This is literally my nightmare. Obviously, people in Sichuan province are extremely unhappy, especially because while large earthquakes are deadly, COVID is not. At least according to China's official statistics, which claims there has not been a single COVID death in all of Sichuan province for more than 2 years. Of course, that data might be just a lie, but it's still hard to justify locking people in their buildings while the walls could literally be collapsing around them. Also this week in neighboring Tibet, it's been reported that the Chinese regime is collecting people's DNA on a massive scale. What's the point of collecting all that DNA? Well, one Chinese official said that mass collection is necessary for the public security organs to detect various illegal cases and to effectively crack down on illegal and criminal elements. It must be why blood samples for DNA collection were being systematically collected from children at kindergartens. They'll finally get those crayon-stealing criminal elements. And obviously everyone else, too. This DNA collection is part of a larger program in Tibet that started in January this year, called the Three Greats. The Three Greats also require police to visit each household and question residents about their views. Not sure what questions the police are asking, but I doubt they're looking for opinions on who should win the next season of Bachelorette. And after the break, China's economy is going down the tubes, except for one bright spot. Welcome back. China's economy is taking a hit, this time because Chinese companies are not exporting as many goods. There's a lot behind this. The zero-COVID lockdowns have hurt China's factory output. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is less interested in buying Chinese stuff, thanks to soaring inflation, and also they don't need to buy any more Chinese pandemic gear, like face masks and shields and those sorts of things. The Japanese financial services company Nomura has cut its forecast for China's GDP growth this year. Again, they now estimate China's economy will grow just 2.7% this year. That's a massive drop from around 6 or 7% before the pandemic. Nomura's chief economist said that about 12% of China's total GDP is affected by COVID controls. In other words, the Communist Party's zero-COVID policy is messing up 12% of the economy. And the economy is already neck-deep in a real estate crisis. Big developers like Evergrande borrowed too much money to build apartment complexes, but they couldn't pay back their debt. And now they don't have the money to finish many of the buildings they promised. Meanwhile, a lot of homeowners who bought apartments they can't move into because they haven't been built are boycotting their mortgage payments. It's a vicious cycle that's dragging the whole property market down, and the property sector is 30% of China's GDP. But don't worry, the Chinese Communist Party has a solution. They're instructing party cadres to buy China's way out of the property crisis. The party secretary of the county in Hunan province told local party officials to take the lead by purchasing additional homes. He said, if you already bought one, buy two. If you've already bought two, buy three. If you've already bought three, buy four. Which is actually a great idea. Pumping money into stabilizing home prices is a great use for all that corrupt money cadres have embezzled over the years. And as a bonus, for each additional home a Chinese cadre buys, he now has a place to keep an additional mistress. And since the party is encouraging cadres to set an example by having more children, why not have 3 children with each mistress? So 4 homes, each with a wife or mistress, could mean 4 times 3 for a total of 12 children per communist official. That's sure to fix China's demographic crisis while causing no additional problems whatsoever. But as China's economy slows, at least one industry is seeing record profits. COVID testing. China's Andon Health, which supplies COVID test kits both at home and abroad, reported that its net profit skyrocketed by more than 27,000% in the first 6 months of 2022, reaching $2.2 billion. It was the biggest increase recorded by any listed company in mainland China. Part of that profit is because they hit the U.S. jackpot. The U.S. government signed contracts with Andon Health for $2.1 billion, mainly to buy at-home COVID test kits. You're not allowed to ask what country the coronavirus came from, but you can sure ask which country you can buy the solution from. And after the break, just when you think things in Hong Kong couldn't get any worse, they're now going after the children. Welcome back. Let's go with some good news for a change. More U.S. officials visited Taiwan this week. The latest is a bipartisan delegation of 8 U.S. lawmakers. That means 28 members of Congress have been to Taiwan this year. And something tells me they're just going to keep coming. For U.S. lawmakers, visiting Taiwan is more popular than the It's Corn song right now. And where America leads, other countries will follow. Even French lawmakers are visiting Taiwan. Okay, I'm all for supporting Taiwan, but we have to draw the line somewhere. French? What's next? Canadians? What's that, Shelley? Ugh, even the Canadians. Well, I hope you enjoyed that good news about Taiwan, because now we're going to talk about Hong Kong, where 5 speech therapists have been found guilty of sedition for publishing children's books. The books are about a peaceful sheep village that's infiltrated by wolves in sheep's clothing. Prosecutors alleged that the children's books depicted the authorities as wolves and Hong Kong people as sheep, implying a vulnerable populace at the mercy of a brutal regime. Really? You don't say. The judge in the case ruled that these books had seditious intention. In other words, that they could incite people to feel hatred or contempt against the Hong Kong government. Or, I guess in this case, incite children. According to the verdict, the seditious intention stems not merely from the words, but from words intended to cause certain effects in a child's mind. Under the sedition law, these speech therapists could be facing up to 2 years in prison. In fact, they've already spent a year behind bars because they were denied bail while waiting for trial. The sedition law is actually a British colonial-era law. No one had been charged with it since 1967, when it was used against pro-communist forces, until the Chinese Communist Party imposed the national security law in Hong Kong in 2020. Then, Hong Kong authorities started using a very broad interpretation of the sedition law to curb dissent. Basically, if the authorities couldn't charge people under the national security law, they could find a way to charge them with the sedition law instead. Around 60 people have been charged with sedition over the last 2 years. The scope of sedition cases also broadened to target journalists, civil servants, and more trivial crimes, such as simply opposing the government's COVID policies. How bad has it gotten? An elderly woman was charged with sedition for clapping in court. Yes, clapping. What's next? Being charged with sedition for smiling at the police? That smile was clearly sarcastic, Your Honor. No one in Hong Kong would genuinely smile at the police. Throw the book at him. And other signs that Hong Kong is doing really well. School teachers have been told to study Xi Jinping's speech, the one he gave in Hong Kong over the summer. The Hong Kong Education Bureau said they would be sending copies of Xi's speech to local schools and encourage teachers to study and learn the key messages of the speech. Messages like Xi's love and care for young people in Hong Kong. Also, if any teachers lose their copy of Xi Jinping's speech, they will be charged with sedition. That's just a joke, I think. And finally, China has come up with the worst cosplay ever. Dressing like Xi Jinping. It's not just for bootlicking Communist Party officials anymore, it's a new trend. The Communist cadre look is so hot right now. They call it office and bureau style, basically bureaucrat style. On Xiaohongshu, which is kind of like Instagram, hashtags for the trend have more than 5 million views. Young people are posting photos of themselves in dark blue zip-up jackets like the one that Xi Jinping wears. And to finish the look, a Communist Party pin. There are even different outfits for whatever level of party official you want to dress like. This is the veteran party official style. Don't forget the nylon socks. Why are young people doing this? Some are doing it ironically. Others are doing it because it looks stable and boring. See, some young people want stable and boring, given the massive numbers of layoffs and difficult economy they're facing. And one way to get stable and boring is a government job. Last year, a record 2 million people registered to take the national government agency's hiring exam. So bureaucrat styles is essentially Communist Party norm core. Is it ironic? Is it not ironic? It's both. I decided to try out the style for myself. Am I doing it right? And this episode is sponsored by Surfshark. When you go online, everything you do is being tracked and logged by the websites you visit and your internet service provider, and in many cases, by your government. And if you're in a place like Hong Kong and want to read children's books online, you definitely should be using a VPN. Because the wolves are watching you. It's not just China and Hong Kong, though. Citizens of nearly every country are being monitored constantly, and that's why, no matter where you live, you should always be keeping your internet activity private, using a VPN like Surfshark. Surfshark secures your data with top-of-the-line, uncrackable encryption. And on top of that, Surfshark intentionally does not keep logs of what you do. In fact, one cool thing it does is keep a server network in the British Virgin Islands, where local laws allow Surfshark to not keep user data logs. So check out Surfshark. With just one Surfshark account, you can connect as many devices as you want. So try it out now. Surfshark has a special deal that includes 83% off a 2-year plan, plus 3 extra months for free. You can protect yourself for just $2.21 a month. So go to surfshark.com/uncensored and use the code uncensored to secure this deal. The link is in the description below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.